So before we get started, I just want to acknowledge that we're meeting on the traditional, ancestral, unceded territories of the First Nations and Native American peoples. So I know here where I am in Vancouver, I'm on the land of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish nations, but many of you are on the land of other nations. So if you'd like, please feel free to write those nation names in the chat right now. Always, let's remember our connection to our siblings in these nations and pray for the day in which we might be with them in right relationship. So welcome, it's so good to see you. Welcome to Living Interfaith. Know that the whole of you is welcome. You're not asked to leave who you are in your own homes. Please bring who you are in with you. But what you are asked to remember is that everyone around you has brought who they are in with them as well. And all of goodwill are welcome. Let's start out with a song. When you're ready, Bruce and Cheryl.
Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come. Come, come, whoever you are. Broken your worships of lovers of leaving. Ours is no caravan, ours is theirs. Come yet again, come. Come, whoever you are. Broken your worships of lovers of leaving. Ours is no caravan, ours is theirs. Come yet again, come.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Bruce and Cheryl. So I have a few announcements. So first, tomorrow there will be a Lunch and Learn About Palestine event at Trinity Grace United Church. So they're going to have a Palestinian Canadian Christian be speaking. Her name is Jeddah Musla, and she's going to talk about some of the myths that we have about Israel. So if you'd like to RSVP or to learn more about the event, I'm going to put her email in the chat. And that's going to be tomorrow. If you don't know where Trinity Grace is, it's in Vancouver in the Mount Pleasant area. So yes, then tomorrow night, also, sorry for our folks who are a little further afield. These are more local things. So tomorrow night, Sufi Dances of Universal Peace will be gathering in North Vancouver. That's really fun. I don't know if any of you have been. It's a Sufi group, but they pull from scriptures and prayers from all different faith traditions to do these folk dances. So that'll be happening tomorrow at the Presentation House Theater at 3rd Street and Chesterfield Ave. So that's in North Van, and that's at 7 p.m. tomorrow. And then next weekend, there's going to be a workshop on the Enneagram. I don't know if you all know what the Enneagram is. It's kind of like a personality test, but it's the idea that there are 9 different things, core needs that folks have. And so we all kind of have one in particular that influences us more than the others. And so understanding kind of how that need impacts our behavior, and then how other people might have different needs and how that impacts their behavior can be a really useful interpersonal tool. So there'll be a workshop about that next weekend, excuse me, all day Saturday and half a day on Sunday. And if you have any questions, you can talk to me about that, because I'm one of the people helping bring the facilitator for that. And then there's going to be an interfaith dialogue about Lent, Ramadan, and Passover. So that looks really fun. It's going to be online on Wednesday, March 29th at around 3 p.m. Pacific time. Excuse me, I'll put the registration page for that in the chat if you're interested. So I love when these kind of, all of our holy days come around the same time. So Ramadan starting this week, we're already during Lent. And then just as Lent is finishing and during Ramadan, we're going to have Passover. So it's really wonderful having these occur simultaneously so we can honor them together. And then finally, speaking of which, we're going to have our annual Passover Seder. So it's going to be a hybrid event. Some folks will be able to come in person, hopefully, and others can join online. And it's the way we've done it. It's kind of fun if you do it at home, then you get to pick what you have. So if you don't have matzah, you can use other kinds of crackers. If you don't have beets, you can just pick a carrot or something like that. And we kind of have use whatever you have in your house. And then it's a retelling of, if you've never been to a Passover Seder, it's a retelling of the story of Moses getting the slaves out of Egypt. But each food represents a different part of the story. And then it's bringing that story into life today as we still struggle with all these different types of oppression in the world. So relating what happened with Moses with the current war in Ukraine, with trying to care for the earth, with trying to overcome oppression here, including in Israel, Palestine. And so it's this beautiful retelling of the story. So that should be really fun. So you can save the date. We're still getting all the details on that worked out, but that's going to be Thursday, April 6th. And so for Christian folks, that's Monday, Thursday. So that's just before Good Friday. But that's also the second night of Passover. So it should be really fun. So, and there'll be more details about that at our next service. So if you'd like to join in person or virtually, we can make that happen. So gosh, those are all my announcements. Oh yes, and I see there's a Baha'i fast. That's right, it's also a Baha'i fast. That's right, so everybody's fasting simultaneously. There's some pretty hungry folks right now. We have all these coming at the same time. So thank you so much for highlighting that, Farah. Are there any other announcements you'd like to give right now? Okay, well, if not, let's just come into silence for a moment and we can get started. So I have a prayer from St. Basil the Great. Holy One, enlarge within us the sense of fellowship with all living things, our siblings, the animals, to whom gavest the earth as their home in common with us. We remember with shame that in the past we've exercised the high dominion of man with ruthless cruelty. So the voice of the earth, which should have gone to thee in song, has instead been a groan of travail. But may we now realize that the animals and the earth live not for us alone, but for themselves and for thee, and that they and all the earth love the sweetness of life as much as we ourselves do. Amen. And now Rachel has a candle lighting prayer for us.
So I have this candle that my grandmother gave me, and it's got a little poinsettia on it. And I thought it would be appropriate because I was telling a friend yesterday that poinsettias, even though we think of them as a tiny plant, actually in Venezuela or in other countries around the world, they grow into giant trees. So it's this thing that we think of as domesticated and tiny, but it actually can grow very large. So this is a prayer. It's an ecological Lord's Prayer by Wendy Jansen from Burning Bush Forest Church. Our nurturing God, present in the entire cosmos, blessed are your names, life and love. May your way of love and your desire for life be available to all creatures, all lands, all waters and skies. Provide for us all that we need for life through healthy soil and water, abundant gardens, food forests, and regenerative agriculture. Forgive us when we exploit the earth, overfish the seas, pollute the skies, and generally overstep healthy boundaries with our neighbors. Move us into living a way of peace that heals the heart of all creation and repairs the fabric of life. Lead us away from greedy ways, lives of consumerism and excess, and deliver us from apathy and inaction. For we want to be faithful to your vision of a life of kinship, reconciliation, and love, today and each new day. Amen.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Rachel. And now let's offer one another a sign of peace. So peace, everyone. It's so great to be with you today.
Peace unto all. Peace unto all.
Peace.
Peace be with you.
Peace to you all.
Peace, everyone.
Peace, everybody.
Peace to all.
Beautiful. And when you're ready, Bruce and Cheryl have another song for us.
Oh, beautiful Gaia, oh, Gaia, calling us home. Oh, beautiful Gaia, calling us on. Soil yielding its harvest. Oh, Gaia, calling us home. Soul yielding its harvest, calling us on. Oh, beautiful Gaia. Oh, Gaia, calling us home. Oh, beautiful Gaia, calling us on. Waves crashing on granite. Oh, Gaia, calling us home. Waves crashing on granite, calling us home. Oh, beautiful Gaia, oh, Gaia, calling us home. Oh, beautiful Gaia, calling us on. I'm bending in windstorm. Oh, Gaia, calling us home. I'm bending in windstorm, calling us on. Oh, beautiful Gaia, oh, Gaia, calling us home. Oh, beautiful Gaia, calling us on. Moon nesting in marshland. Oh, Gaia, calling us home. Moon nesting in marshland, calling us on. Oh, beautiful Gaia, oh, Gaia, calling us home. Oh, beautiful Gaia, calling us on.
That was so beautiful. Oh my goodness, that was so wonderful. Thank you so much, Bruce and Cheryl. And you know, the reason we record the whole service each time for YouTube is so that then if folks want to listen to Bruce and Cheryl's songs later, in addition, if they want to hear the sermon again, then they get a chance to. So it's beautiful. Thank you. And now Mary has offered to lead us in the joint affirmation. Mary, would you like me to share my, oh, you're way ahead of me.
Here I am.
Mary knows how to do things. She's great. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Kathy. I'm, as I mentioned, I think last time, I'm pleased to be, I think, member number 34, just joined recently. And enjoying taking on some tasks like looking after our Facebook group and page. So I'd love to see you there. So let's say this together. We come together in peace. We sing together in joy and with love. We worship together in one house, a house with names beyond number. Our paths are many. Our beliefs are as leaves, and the tree that we cleave to is nourished by the light of compassion, justice, and mutual respect. May our lives, our beliefs, and our actions help to bring about the world of love we all seek. And let it begin here.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Mary. And now is when we pray in our own homes and in our own ways. As always, there are so many needs in the world that need our prayers. But this week I was reading a lot of sad news around the environment. So I don't know if you saw in Australia, they're having millions of dead fish washing up in certain beaches, and they're still figuring out the cause. It seems like because it's been so hot this summer that the fish just can't make it. So they have these really horrific pictures of just like a sea of dead fish coming in. And then also the news in California, as it's been getting colder and they had so much snow this winter, how that was affecting wildlife in a different way that are not used to the extreme cold. And so some of them freezing to death and not being able to get the food they need. And just as everything is changing because of human activity and how it's impacting the earth and the animals, just felt a lot of grief this week over that. So if we could take some time to pray for the planet and our beloved animals, our siblings in this world with us, and any other causes that speak to us at this time. Let's take a few moments to pray. Thank you. And when you're ready, let's sing.
Each blade of grass, every wing that soars, the waves that sweep across a distant shore, make full the circle of God. Each laughing child, every gentle eye, a forest lit beneath the moonlight sky, make full the circle of God. Each silent pond, every rounded stone, the buzz that echoes from a honeycomb, make
So beautiful. Thank you so much. So now is when I usually say, if we met in person, I pass around a basket. In lieu of that, I'm going to put our donation page in the chat. And I know lots of you are donating, especially right now. We're having a fundraising campaign this month. We've never had one before. So good on us. We survived a very long time without chasing you down for money. But it's been very helpful this month. I know so many of you have been pledging and doing monthly donations and doing a lot of donations to help us out so we can get more secure. And we're just really, really grateful for all your support. It's really helpful so we can meet costs and also, you know, pay our wonderful staff and musicians a living wage, hopefully a somewhat living wage. And yeah, we're just so grateful for you helping support the community in that way. So thank you. And now when you're ready, let's sing.
From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live.
Beautiful, thank you. And now it's my joy to turn it over to our dear friend and council member, Dan. Dan has been with us about 1.5 years, and he is an activist and a spiritual director and a great many other things in Indiana. So I will let him share about himself and what he'd like to talk about today in terms of protecting the earth. So when you're ready, Dan, over to you.
Okay, I'm so relieved to see these slides up and running because I'm not yet able to do the screen share myself. So, well, we want to get back to number 1, I think, yeah. So there we are. Just give me a second here. So I wanted to thank Reverend Kathy for inviting me to speak about ecocide. It's a passionate concern I have, given my concern for the environment and for nature and for this great planet that we are a part of, that we're an integral part of. I do want to kind of make right off the beginning here, I want to make a little bit of a disclaimer, which is that I'm not a professional environmentalist. I haven't been trained. I'm not a lawyer either, because we're going to see that law is important, but I care passionately, and like many other issues that have legal implications, voting, apartheid in the day in South Africa, Israel right now in terms of law, I think it's important for us to think about the legal underpinnings of some of the activist concerns that we share. So that's the perspective I'm bringing to ecocide today. So we can go on to number 2 now. Yeah. I'm going to make a suggestion that there are going to be some terms you might not be like use in daily conversation. And there will also be some resources. And so you might want to have a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen close by to jot down some of these terms or some of the resources that you want to go to after we're done today. So here we have, right in front of us, the International Criminal Court in The Hague in the Netherlands, which adjudicates criminal crime, international crimes. And I want to talk about this organization because Ecocide is related directly to the organization itself, or at least we're hoping it will be. At the moment, the International Criminal Court, give me a second here so I can get some glare off of my papers. Yeah, sorry. At the moment, the International Criminal Court adjudicates 4 criminal crimes, and you'll be aware of them when you hear them. One of these crimes, war crimes, actually was highlighted in the news yesterday. If you followed the breaking news that the ICC, that's the acronym, issued an arrest warrant to Vladimir Putin, accusing him of war crime of unlawful deportation of children from the Ukraine to Russia. So one of the crimes that the court adjudicates is war crimes. The second one, and related, all of these crimes at times get totally related, but they're distinct in terms of legal codes and texts. The second one is genocide. I think that's the one that we're most aware of and that we're most conscious of due to the Holocaust or possibly the Armenian genocide. That's a term that's found its way into our language. The third crime that the court adjudicates is aggression. And aggression really means serious top-down planning, and it focuses mostly on the top, but serious top-down planning for expanding territories or moving into other places. In other words, it hasn't broken out into war, maybe yet, but that there is a crime of aggression, even if it doesn't ever eventuate into war. Another crime, the fourth crime, is crimes against humanity. And there we can think about, maybe Armenia would be a great crime to think about, what happened to the Armenians. Recent crimes in Sierra Leone or Rwanda or Cambodia. I mean, they go on and on. Possibly Argentina would be another example, Argentina during the 70s and 80s. So identifying these crimes is a definite deterrent to impunity. And it's a potent recognition of where the international community stands. Whether or not they always are able to bring prosecution against all cases, they choose cases that are relevant and that point towards other cases. Okay, we can see the next one now. So what we're doing when we are talking about Stop Ecocide, we're really asking and proposing that a fifth legal plank or a fifth crime for the International Criminal Court be ecocide. Well, what is ecocide? It's not a word we use all the time. Ecocide means the unlawful or wanton acts committed with knowledge that there is a substantial likelihood of severe and either widespread or long-term damage to the environment caused by these acts. We might pause here just to give some examples if we're wanting examples, and I have a few here. I think one would be the deforestation of the great Amazon. We could speak about water and soil pollution, air pollution. The Chernobyl accident is an accident that still remains in our memory. Deep water spills, such as what is going on in the Niger Delta in West Africa. All of these are examples of ecocide. Ecocide might be damage brought to the ocean, as sometimes symbolized by these huge islands of plastic bottles that we see in the Pacific Ocean. Whether or not a single person or company put them there, it is nonetheless, it is ecocide. Okay. Now, why is this so urgent? And this is another word we want to put on our little list. So already we have International Criminal Court, ICC, we have ecocide, and now we have the Anthropocene, which is my best bet on how to pronounce it, the Anthropocene. Somebody can correct. But the Anthropocene is it was the elephant in the room maybe, but it's no longer. It's the reality in which we're living. And the Anthropocene is a geological period of time. The one just preceding it was the Holocene. And this is a new present day epoch in which scientists say we have significantly altered the earth through human activity. And if you look at the picture on the side that I found, that picture I think really shows a lot about the harm to the earth through extraction industry of some kind. But the changes that have altered the earth through human activity, not through animal activity that balance each other out or of other living beings and creatures. These changes include global warming, habitat loss, changes in chemical composition of the atmosphere, oceans and soil, and animal extinctions of which we hear about constantly. So for the first time, the earth is subject to human forces, to human activities, to human decisions. And this is a great quote that I wanted to share with you. The planetary limits are the result of an observation. Human activities are dangerously disturbing the balance of planet Earth. As such, the human footprint now rivals nature, becoming a geological force in its own right, the Anthropocene. In 2009, the Stockholm Resilience Center director, Johan Rockström, and a team of 29 scientists identified nine planetary boundaries that, I want to say this just right. Give me a second here to get, I'm having trouble with it, Claire. Yeah, no, let me back up. Okay, they identified 9 processes that regulate the stability and resilience of the Earth's systems. Crossing these boundaries risks sizable environmental change. And so I just want to, we're not going to have time to describe each of these, and we don't want to get stopped on any one, but at least to know of the boundaries. So these boundaries, which point to a kind of a tipping point, if you will, if they're crossed, are global water use, land use change, erosion of biodiversity, increased aerosols in the atmosphere, climate change, ocean acidification, stratospheric ozone depletion, disruption of biochemical nitrogen, phosphorus cycles, and chemical pollutions. These are the boundaries they identified, that if we cross these boundaries, we're towards an irrevocable tipping point. So as of now, 5 of these limits or boundaries have been exceeded. Climate change, land usage, altered biochemical nitrogen phosphorus cycles, loss of biodiversity. And last year, the statistics showed that chemical pollution had been breached. So there are now 5 of the 9 boundaries have been measured as having been breached. A World Council of Churches report warns that time is short, that time is very short, and a time of non-return is very, very near. Here we are with a quote that I think is also important. It says that International Criminal Court recognition of ecocide will provide protection for the Earth's living systems. It would preempt ecocide by making the worst illegal and wanton acts very risky for decision makers involved. And it would level the playing field for business, improving conditions for more sustainable options. When you really think about it, such huge things as these oil spills or as Chernobyl, really, in all honesty, there has been no legal basis for bringing those at fault to justice. And the result of naming ecocide would allow the criminal court and the international community to actually bring justice to bear. It might cause these actors to think twice. Okay, this is a picture of me in Canada. Frank and I went up to Algonquin in Ontario. I think some of you knew this, and spent a few weeks in September, early October. And while we were hiking and camping, doing our tent camping thing, we found ourselves with some very ancient trees that had been preserved. And so Frank took this picture of me as a tree hugger. Okay, I'm glad to be named as a tree hugger. I don't have any trouble with that. I actually love the trees. Ever since maybe, you know, I love Tolkien. And in Lord of the Rings, I mean, trees have a very prominent place throughout Tolkien's literature. But is like tree hugging enough? I mean, or is it anything really at the end of the day, except sort of a symbol of our aspirations and our hopes and our dreams, which I think is potent, but is it enough? And I think not. I think we have to develop practices. They can be small practices in terms of maybe our usage of aerosols, or small practices in terms of how we buy an electric bike, or a hybrid or an electric car, or that we just walk rather than even ever take a vehicle or use public transportation. We know a lot of these things, but that we need to add to our hugs, we need to add other things that have more heft. And moving up the system to the next level really would be to advocate as best we can for ecocide. So how can you, if you're convinced by this argument I'm trying to put out, how can you help activate a law to protect the earth? I'm not going to go into all the ways because it's easy for you to find. But if you go to www.stopecocide.earth, you'll be able to see a vast array, and Reverend Kathy has put this on our chat, but you'll be able to see a vast array of things you can do to promote the idea of ecocide. If you go on YouTube, you'll see that Stop Ecocide Canada has a number of videos that you can look at. But two of the things you can do at this Stop Ecocide Earth is, one thing is there is a manifesto or a proclamation of citizens, world citizens, that you can sign saying that you accept the terms of the manifesto, which are essentially that it's time to have an ecocide law, an ecocide criminal statute. And the other one is the other document that's up for signing is by groups, churches or nonprofits or other organizations, in which they sign as an organization unto the Stop Ecocide movement. There's a lot there, and you can visit it at www.stopecocide.org. Another place where you can find really great resources, I want to lift up Sojourners magazine in the United States, which does a lot of work on climate and racial issues in this country. But there's an article that was written by a retired professor at the Union Theological Seminary in New York City, where I happen to have graduated. And he wrote an article called "The Times They Are A-Changing." His name is Larry Rasmussen. And he actually occupies the chair that was the chair of Reinhold Niebuhr, who I'm sure a lot of you have heard of and may possibly read. Anyway, that's in Sojourners, the April 2023 issue. And it's a wonderful, wonderful article that that really elaborates the stakes of what is what's at stake right now, and how close we are into walking into the Anthropocene. Then another book that has faith voices from a variety of faiths, Muslim, Jewish, Christian, Buddhist, and others, is a book that's is really, I think, was the result of some work of the World Council of Churches. And it's called Faith Voices for Ecocide Law. It's not available in print, and it's, I think, about $5 US, and can be gotten at Amazon.com. And it's a very appropriate book for an interfaith community, an interspiritual community as we are to read. So those are two resources that you can find if you're interested in learning more. I want to stop with two quotations and a question. And I'm not embellishing these quotations because I want us to focus not on the graphics, but on the words. The first quotation is from Thomas Berry. And Thomas Berry said that planetary well-being is primary, human well-being is derivative. To think that we have to think about the entire planet as our primary object, knowing that human well-being will be derivative of that, I think is a thought that is not yet really understood generally almost anywhere. And the next quote that I want to just stop and ponder a moment is from Robin Kimmerer, who has written this wonderful book called Braiding Sweetgrass. And she says, from the very beginning of the world, the other species were a lifeboat for the people. Now we must be theirs. It's all in the pronouns. All flourishing is mutual. Now we must be theirs. Now in this Anthropocene, threatened time, we must be the lifeboat for all the other species. But up until now, we've had a free ride on their backs. And the quote that she uses, it's all in the pronouns. Okay, well, I announced that I'm Dan, he, him. Kathy announces her pronouns as well. We do that. But in this particular case, the pronouns shift a little bit because it's all in the pronouns. How we view this crisis that we're in and how we feel motivated to advocate for stopping ecocide is in the pronouns I, me, and over against we, us, they. It's a little bit like the South African Zulu word Ubuntu, which means really anytime it's evoked, we are because we exist because of the community, really, essentially, or some such interpretation. So I didn't want to end with a certainty. I wanted to end with a question. And I wanted to end just for something to think about, or if later in our conversation. But is interfaith, as we understand it in this sanctuary, is interfaith an appropriate ethic, practice, and stance for the Anthropocene? Why not? And my assumption in this, I'm sorry to say, but my assumption is that we either are or we're going to be, unless sense prevails, we're going to have to deal with what are ethics, practices, spiritualities, and stances, both corporate and individual, for this Anthropocene time that I think we're very quickly moving into. So with that, I'm going to thank you for listening, and thanking again, Reverend Kathy, for inviting me to share my thoughts.
That was so powerful, Dan. Thank you so much. So powerful and so informative. I think that was really, really helpful for all of us, especially if we're not used to thinking of these things in terms of international law and at that kind of global scale in that way, that we all, like even our nations, have to come together and work together and really take a stance against this. So I really appreciate you bringing that to us today and all your sharing and all your careful prep. Thank you. I think Bruce and Cheryl, oh wait, I see Diane has a question. Diane, I don't know if it's a question. We will have a Q&A at the end. Do you want it to be then, or do you think it's okay, we'll wait just a little bit. I promise we'll get to you first, don't worry. So Bruce and Cheryl have one more song for us, and I'll do a closing blessing, and we'll make sure we get to the Q&A then. Okay, when you're ready, Bruce and Cheryl.
A request from Dan.
Come gather round, people, wherever you roam, and admit that the waters around you have grown, and accept it that soon you'll be drenched to the bone. If your time to you is worth saving, then you better start swimming, or you'll sink like a stone, for the times they are a-changing. Come writers and critics who prophesize with your pen, and keep your eyes wide, the chance won't come again. And don't speak too soon, the wheel's still in spin, and there's no telling who that it's naming. For the losers now will be later to win, for the times they are a-changing. Come politicians, public servants, please heed the call. Don't stand in the doorway, don't block up the hall, for the one that gets hurt will be the one who has stalled. There's a battle outside raging, we'll soon shake your windows and rattle your walls, for the times they are present now will later be past. The orders are rapidly fading, and the first one now will later be last. For the times they are changing. For the times they are changing. For the times they are changing.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Bruce and Cheryl. Excellent choice, Dan. This is great. Sometime we need to have like an old hippie sing along. That would be so fun. I would totally eat that up. It'd be amazing. So friends, let's go forth being aware of the reality around us, really taking in what we're doing to the earth, what we're doing to all the animals and one another, not shying away from it, not avoiding it because it makes us sad or uncomfortable. But let's really take it in and know that because we can take it in, then we can change, that these things can't change unless we're really willing to face them. But let's go forth with courage and just knowing that we can work together. We can still turn some of this around and make a difference. But first we have to face it and then see what we can do to work together. So let's go forward with that courage. Amen.